Okay. Thanks for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee on Thursday, the 1st of Feb. I'm Caleb Tomlinson. I'm the councillor for Banbury Bridge West and I'm the chair of the committee. Committee members and members of the public are reminded that this meeting is being streamed and recorded and it will be live on YouTube. If you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public who is registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of 4 minutes. You'll be timed and I will let you know when your 4 minutes is up and I expect you to wind up and stop speaking. You come forward to the microphone, press the speak button, introduce yourself, and once you've done that, your timing will start. Voting will be undertaken by the electronic system, and when the votings are complete on each item, Dave will give us the results. We're not anticipating a fire alarm drill, but if the alarm does go off, you should leave via the fire exits, which are behind you, and we meet at the front of West Paddock. If you've got mobile phones, can you put them on silent now or switch them off, whichever? And I will now ask everyone to introduce themselves, beginning with the young gentleman on my left.
Thanks, Chair. I'm David Whelan, the Council's Head of Legal and Procurement.
Ben Story, Democratic Service Officer.
Catherine Smith, Councillor for Broadfield Ward.
Councillor Matthew Farnworth for Seven Stars Ward.
Good evening, Councillor Phil Smith, and I represent New Longton and Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor David Shaw, representing Howick and Priory Ward in Penwitham.
Good evening, Councillor Colin Sharples representing Earnshaw Bridge Ward, and I'm standing in this evening for Councillor Will Adams.
Good evening, Councillor Peter Molyneux, Samlesbury and Walton Ward.
Councillor Hayden Williams representing Leyland Central.
Councillor Mary Green representing Moss Side and Midge Hall.
Elaine Stringfellow, Councillor for Lostock Hall Ward and Vice Chair.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Development Management Team Leader.
Good evening, Chris Salby, Development Planning Team Leader.
Good evening, Lisa Mathewson, Senior Planning Officer.
Good evening, Catherine Thomas, Planning Manager.
Okay, thanks everyone. So we have had apologies from Councillor Will Adams, who's been subbed by Councillor Colin Sharples, who has become the super sub of late. Okay, do we have any declarations of interest in this evening's agenda? No. Okay, I've read and agreed with the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of January. I'm happy to sign them off. Could I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Smith. Can we go to the electronic vote? If you weren't here, don't forget to abstain.
Yes, those minutes have been approved, just 2 abstentions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave. Let's have the appeal decisions, please, Catherine.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've received 1 appeal decision since last Planning Committee meeting, and it relates to 22 Cowling Lane in Leyland, and the development proposed was the erection of a dwelling house. The inspector considered the application, which related to a piece of public open space to either side of the junction of Deaver Avenue with Cowling Lane, and the inspector concluded that there would be harm arising due to the loss of the open space, and therefore the appeal was dismissed and planning permission refused.
Okay, more good news. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, item 6 this evening, land to the north of AB InBev UK Limited, Cudell Lane, Samlesbury. Debbie, if you would like to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, the site in question is a 3.5 hectare undeveloped piece of grassland to the northwest of the InBev Brewery. It's an established commercial site. The application is constructed and owned by a third party, but for use by and in association with the brewery. So whilst it's inherently connected, InBev aren't the applicant. To the south of the brewery is dense woodland and a BHS, Biological Heritage Site. That won't be affected by the scheme. To the east is open farmland. West is the same, but there are 3 dwellings which face across Vicarage Lane, and to the north is the A59 bypass, and again that's screened by woodland. The site slopes up from the northwest to the southwest corners by about 15 to 20 metres, and from the west down to the northeast, that way, get my bearings. Development actually proposed at mostly the lower levels, but I'll show you that in a second. There are 2 TPO tree protection orders on site in addition to the BHS. There's a group adjacent to the northern boundary alongside the A59 and a small area on the southeast corner. Neither will be affected by the development. And running from northeast to southwest, there is a gas pipeline with relevant exclusion zones. I'll show you that in a second as well. The site is within the green belt. Okay. The application proposes 2 separate access points into the site. The first one is a new roundabout created in the southwest corner which connects to the existing InBev hard standing. It will allow HGVs to access the filling station only, and I'll show you where that is in a second, but only HGVs coming from inside the Secures brewery area. From the roundabout, a road will run northwards and it connects with circulatory space which runs around proposed plant. All areas of the site benefit from security fencing and or walling. Access 2 is off Vicarage Lane. That would accommodate emergency maintenance vehicles and a small contingent of on-site personnel. Access into the filling station isn't possible from this section. The road slopes upwards into the site. It's secured, as I mentioned earlier, and Lancashire County Council highways are satisfied with the visibility displays and the footpaths which connect to Vicarage Lane. The pink areas on the plan are the gas pipeline, which I showed earlier, which is in the centre of that, and the exclusion zone where development can't occur. Cadent Gas have no objection to the scheme. That came in yesterday. You should have a late update sheet which gives a condition from Cadent, and subject to that, they've no objection whatsoever. Okay. In terms of development within the site, I'm going to keep this as simple as possible. There's a lot of information. It's very detailed and it's all in your report. This is a close-up of the main developable area, which shows the proposed Vicarage Lane access and the main access road coming from within the brewery. To the southwest will be a vehicle filling station. That's directly north of the main access road. And it would include 6 vehicle fueling stations, they're for InBev use and access only. The site will be graded and account for the site topography, so the upper levels will be excavated, lower levels will be filled to provide a level but less visible developable area. I'll give you more details of that, but there is sort of a bowl to the centre of the site, and the scheme's been accounted, that bowl's been accounted for so that all the development is in the less visible parts of the site. Also within the site, we've got 2 security cabins, which are shown on here as red stars. There is a third one off the screen, which will be near the southern roundabout. A 2-storey control room, a small mess, office and changing rooms, which are shown with a yellow star, and a small car park between the 2. There's a similar size workshop on the eastern side, that's the one with the green star. And surrounding and adjacent to all the circulatory routes is the plant associated with hydrogen production. It's scattered throughout the site, and as I said earlier, I'm not going to go into detail of that. It's too complicated to do that at this point, but it is all within your report. As I mentioned earlier, the land will be excavated to account for the sloping topography of the site and to use the site's bold centre. development would be less visible from outside the site, and this slide shows the site sections. Now, on these slides, the landscape's been omitted so that you can get the best view of it, but on all sides, it will be well screened. Development will be placed to be least obtrusive, and there is additional landscaping proposed, which I'll go into in a second. Just a very quick one, site levels. This is the Vicarage Lane access. This will slope upwards by 8 metres over 135 metres from Vicarage Lane. This section is slightly higher in that it almost levels with the top of the sloping Vicarage Lane access, and then slopes up to the rest of the area, which is the orange area. Development is primarily, as you can see, at the lower levels. In terms of landscaping, there is existing screening across Preston New Road, existing woodland that's protected by preservation order. On the eastern side, we've got the BHS and woodland. That's at a much higher level, and that won't be affected at all. On the west is screening on Vicarage Lane that's already there, but there is an augmentation plan for that, so there'll be supplementary landscaping. There is also in-site landscaping. And we've had a visual impact assessment that's been undertaken, and it's acceptable to the council's consultee, so the arborist, the ecologist. We've had no statutory objections and no comment from Samlesbury Parish Council. We have had representation from residents which relate primarily to noise, wildlife and highways. They've all been assessed by the expert consultees, and subject conditions or mitigation are acceptable. And we've had comments about the loss of greenbelt. Now, there is a very detailed greenbelt assessment in the report and complete justification, and overall it's considered acceptable in greenbelt terms. Again, I'm not going to go into that in detail because there are pages of it, but you'll have read your report, I'm sure. We would recommend approval with conditions, but if the local authority wants to approve major development in the greenbelt, the Town and Country Planning 2021 consultation direction requires that we notify the Secretary of State for 21 days. The recommendation on the report also is subject to cadent comments, which we've received, and they're on your update sheet. And it refers to the head of planning and enforcement, which is changed. So we would go with approval and conditions subject to the amended recommendation, which is decision delegated to the Chair, Vice Chair and Director of Property and Planning following consideration of the proposed scheme by the Secretary of State. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Debbie, thanks for that brief overview of a very thick bunch of papers. So we have we do have an objector, Mr. John Grieve. If you'd like to come to the table, press the button, introduce yourself, and then the timer will start.
Good evening, councillors. My name is John Greaves. I'm a resident of Samlesbury. I'm also a trustee of the Memorial Hall, which is virtually next door to the site we're talking about. The site in question is all greenbelt. It's agricultural land, all 14 acres. If you go to your local supermarket, it's very likely the eggs you've bought have come from these open green fields. The same goes for the beef, lamb, milk, etc. All supermarkets are now trying to source as close as possible to cut the carbon miles. So it's imperative that we keep the greenbelt. And I personally feel that the greenbelt alone should be the reason why you reject this this application. I am by trade an electrochemist, having for 30 odd years run my own business. So when I heard this company was telling everyone that they were putting electricity into water to get hydrogen, I was interested. I went to the information day at Rocko's, and yes, they boldly told me that it was easy. You get your water, you put your electricity in, and out pops hydrogen. And it was as simple as that. The brochure, the glossy brochure said virtually the same. The best thing they told me was that after taking out the hydrogen, all that was left was water. Now, anybody who's done GCSE chemistry would know that that's not possible. It is a load of rubbish. The way it was described to the general public, it is a load of rubbish. Let me tell you that you need to add something so that you can electrolyse the water. In my trade, it was cyanide was used. After much heated debate, they eventually told me that a membrane was added, but couldn't tell me what was in this membrane, indeed how it worked. I later found out this membrane was made by Siemens, a reputable company, and I happened to have done business with them for many years. So I made some inquiries, and yes, it is true, they are working on such a device, but at present only on test. They want a company to test this membrane in production, but as yet there's no company doing so. This hasn't been done yet, so if you go ahead tonight and pass this application, the plant put it in our green belt is only a prototype. It hasn't been proven. I will say at this point, I do genuinely believe that at some point the future of hydrogen will happen. However, the big players in the market have as yet been unable to do so. The Shells and BPs, and there are others, have pumped billions of pounds into this for years because it's in their interest. But as yet, they aren't ready to bring it to market. It's not far off, but it's not ready. That's what I've been told. In the glossy brochure, the company's Proteum claimed that Magor in South Wales will be the first to come on tap. I hope some of you talked to your fellow councillors at Magor Town Council. I did, and spoke to a very surprised member. He was very forthcoming and also amazed that they were trying to do the same on our site without the on-site solar panels. He wished that he'd never heard of the name Proteum because it has caused so many problems for them. They apparently have a triple SSI within their boundary, which
Mr. Greaves, you've had your 4 minutes.
Yes, I've almost finished.
Okay, can you tie up, please?
I will. They reckon it will have to be decided by the Welsh Government. Councillors, if you are minded to pass this, I urge you to take a technical advice before you contaminate 14 acres of our valuable green belt. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Greaves. I forgot to say thanks to the officers and Catherine for the site visit that we all attended. Thanks very much for that. Councillor Keith Martin, as the lead member of Climate Change, if you'd like to come, press the speak button, and you have 4 minutes. Councillor Martin. Hey? Up to you.
Okay, well, you can start it now. My name's Councillor Keith Martin. I'm the lead member for Climate Change. I'm also the chair of the Climate Emergency Committee, but the committee's views are not represented here. The application first came to this council in March 2023 with an environmental impact assessment. So all those on the committee who were there then would be fully versed with what was going to happen here. Salisbury Net Zero Limited first approached council, as I said, in 2023, and myself and the enigmatic James Flannery, who's a councillor and a cabinet member, met with them to discuss what they were going to do. We were invited on a site visit, which was attended by planning officers as well as other members. We were given a short tour of the brewery as well, which was quite insightful, because what it did do is it gave the reason why this should go ahead with respect to changing from natural gas, which is polluting the local environment, to a fuel that does not pollute the environment in the same way. And you got to remember is every bottle of ale and beer you drink has been boiled to sterilise it. So that's where the energy comes. We did ask about heat reclamation and the power factor issues that come with this, and the brewery were fully versed with that and did what they can to reduce that, but there's still a need to reduce it further. I believe the land proposed was once a valley, and in theory it could be seen as a landfill because it was the spoil from building the dual carriageway that filled it and made it not so much of a valley. So I know it's green belt, and I'll let councillors, the committee, argue that between themselves. But for me, it's landfill. It's a fantastic opportunity to reduce the carbon footprint, not just for the brewery in South Ribble, but for residents. A quick look at the retrofit document that we have with the Climate Emergency Committee, we'll see that Samlesbury does have a need for some work doing to it to try and reduce their carbon footprint, and for the area this will make a big deal for it. The use of their own wind farm, which is in Scotland, will help make it a greener hydrogen production, though I do worry about the transmission charges because that's sort of out of control, so that'll be the company's need to do that. Given the need for monitoring via the Health and Safety Executive via the COMA regulations, the control of major accidents and hazards, it would be beneficial, I think, to have a stakeholders forum for the local council and residents and groups who maybe have an interest in this, to ensure that their safety is assured and their input is valued and taken into account. The council already takes in such stakeholders committee. We have 7 COMAR registered sites in Lancashire, one of them being Springfield Nuclear Fuels, which I attend that, and we get updates about COMAR, and everyone's looking at it. You can't fudge it. So this is, as far as I'm aware, there's no issue around any incident happening there. So just to sum up, I fully support this application. I'd like to see a greater percentage of biodiversity in the application as a condition, but that's for debate, and possibly help, which would obviously possibly help to help the local environment. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Martin. Thanks very much for that. Right, we have the ward member, Councillor Jasmine Gleave. Okay, Councillor Gleave, you have 4 minutes, okay?
Good evening. Thank you for hearing me tonight. Please bear with me. I'm going to have to be a bit on the hoof because a few things have been said already, and I'm going to have to amend a bit of the order of what I'm speaking about. Firstly, thank you to John for speaking. I'd like to address a couple of things that came up earlier as well. Debbie Roberts did allude to the fact that the parish council hadn't made comment, but I was under the impression they had lodged an objection. So can we check that? Because I thought I read an objection letter from them. Can we?
Yeah, before this went onto the agenda, I went through all the representation we had in the office. With nothing from the parish council. Okay, because we separate it in the report and it is specifically noted down.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing was, you mentioned it is an established commercial site, but this isn't an established commercial site. This is outside of the commercial site.
Yeah, but I made it very clear at the beginning that whilst this isn't an application for the brewery, it's for use by and in conjunction with the brewery.
But it is external to the...
It's an external piece of land outside of the brewery compound, yes.
Thank you. Also, to speak to Keith Martin, sorry, you're behind me, I do apologise. Yeah, I was disappointed and would like it noted that I wasn't included in the site visit to the brewery, and neither was Peter Molyneux, the other councillor for our ward. Oh, sorry, the climate. Right, I was told on email that it was because it was to do with the ward. Okay, and also that it's listed as grade 3 agricultural land, not a tip or landfill. If there's one thing I've concluded for certain while looking into the claims about green credentials, every claim and figure quoted is manipulated to suit an objective, and to this end I've been unable to substantiate any claims made by the applicant. I'm going to try and summarise this a little bit more briefly. They told us they had a site in Wales and gave the impression it was under operation when they did the consultancy back in at Brockholes, but the site doesn't exist and it hasn't been approved yet, as I think John mentioned earlier. There's lots of objections have been lodged by our residents, and I would like to voice their concerns tonight. The interests of consistency with the council's opinions and upholding their residents' views. I would like their views taken into consideration and the concerns that they are being used as a guinea pig for this this science experiment, really. The parish council were definitely had told me they were against it, whether their objection has been received or not. And the potential light pollution is a massive concern for all in the area. There's also two grade 1 listed buildings close by in proximity, and these should be given consideration as well. Greenbelt policy states that even renewable energy projects located in the Greenbelt must demonstrate very special circumstances, and I don't believe these have been demonstrated here, and I haven't seen enough evidence to explain that to me. Just a lot of big, long telephone numbers that are really not understandable to the layperson or for anyone, I believe, in this room really to put their head around. I don't see any benefit outweighing harm to the Greenbelt. And also, it should be noted that the highway concerns that we have should get some weight given to them. And in consideration of, if you're of a mind to approve this, I would ask that strict conditions are put on this planning application to tie it to the brewery, because the highways did note in their lack of objection that the reason they didn't object was the link to the brewery and the assurance that no extra traffic will be generated.
Councillor, you've had 4 minutes.
Okay.
4 minutes.
Can I just wrap it up a little bit?
Okay, if you can tie up, please.
Yeah. I would ask that the committee refuses this application on the grounds there's been no demonstration of very special circumstances. But I would also, because there's been a lot of positive comment here tonight already, if the committee are of a mind to approve it, I'd ask to defer this to give us more time to consider the implications in the interest of the right decision for all, mostly for the residents. The HGV access, I would ask the condition is that Vicarage Lane entrance is removed after the construction process is complete, because there doesn't seem to be any need for it when there's only 20 vehicle movements per day listed as being going forward. There's no need for that extra access point when they could actually just use the access within the site and not encroach further onto the Greenbelt. And that could be mitigating the visual amenity effects of that extra access. Okay, thank you.
Just before I bring the applicant in, Debbie, statutory consultees, no objections, no?
No, not at all. We've consulted them on the heritage buildings. We went to Growth Lancashire, who are a heritage specialist, and to the archaeologist at Lancashire County Council, and they've no objections. In terms of highways concerned, the original scheme was to bring everybody through a different access altogether. Lancashire County Highways objected to that scheme, and that's resulted in this scheme with the 2 accesses. The emergency and staff access will allow access into the plant area. The main access from InBev will allow vehicles to go into the refilling station, but they will be independent internally, and HGVs won't be allowed from the Vicarage Lane access. That will just be emergency and staff, and vice versa. I think the aim of Lancashire County Council, and there are conditions on the permission, I believe, is to restrict use of the filling station to InBev staff. And that was one of the reasons that the original scheme was amended to account for that need. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Debbie. Okay, we have the applicant, Dominic Page. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, just very quickly, if you look at 6.3 in the report, it does mention the Town and Parish Council and their objection. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Good evening, Dominic. If you'd like to make your representations, you have 4 minutes, okay?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. My name's Dominic Page. I'm the planning agent for this application. Briefly, by way of background, the applicant currently operates an electrolyser test plant in Wales, separate to the site we've heard about tonight at Magor, which uses similar technology as proposed in Samlesbury. This has demonstrated that hydrogen can be captured safely and efficiently for commercial use. The proposed electrolyser package is essentially an off-the-shelf product that has been installed and operated by numerous companies internationally and is therefore tried and tested. And the proposed use of the technology to support the brewery's sustainability targets is market-leading in the UK. Regarding the Greenbelt context, the brewery benefits from a policy allocation of more than 20 years. However, the allocation boundary now constrains growth with no space available to deliver the scheme within the brewery. The proposed site is owned by the brewery, and the hydrogen plant will only serve the brewery. The development will therefore directly align with the objectives of the brewery's adopted policy, albeit situated outside the allocation. The scheme is modest in scale and does not result in significant conflicts with the 5 purposes of Greenbelt. The impact on openness is very low when considered against the extent of the surrounding Greenbelt. This context clearly distinguishes the proposal from other Greenbelt proposals in the Samlesbury area that do not have an adopted policy basis as a starting point. With this in mind, I summarise some of the very special circumstances as follows. The proposal will be a market-leading carbon-free energy development, a first of its kind in South Ribble. NPPF paragraph 156 states clearly that very special circumstances include the wider environmental benefits of such development. It will help to secure the future of the brewery as a long-standing local employer. The savings in carbon emissions directly respond to the council's climate emergency. The development will achieve more than a 10% gain in biodiversity and more than 260% gain in hedgerow units. Significant benefits will be gained by local nature reserves, designated wildlife sites, local residents in the local highway network as a result of improved air quality directly from oxygen emitted by the proposed plant and the removal of up to 11,000 tonnes of carbon emissions from the brewery every year. 24 new jobs will be created on site and unique training and education opportunities will develop with relationships already formed between university and research institutions across Lancashire. When these circumstances are taken together, I believe that the case for development in the Greenbelt is entirely compelling in this instance. The applicant has proactively engaged with local residents and stakeholders with a lot of positive feedback received. However, I note that some concerns have been submitted by local residents regarding how the site will operate, and I can assure members on the following points. No additional HGV traffic will be created by the development once operational. The brewery intends to replace its existing diesel fleet with hydrogen-powered HGVs. Once operational, all HGV access will be via the brewery. Hydrogen-powered HGVs are much quieter than diesel engines with no harmful emissions. The new access at the northern end of Vicarage Lane will only be used by staff and maintenance vehicles with approximately 20 daily movements. The bulk of the development is proposed on lower ground and a colour assessment has been completed to ensure the scheme will not be visually prominent. Landscaping and sensitive lighting measures are included in the scheme to minimise the visual impact for immediate neighbours. Planning conditions provide further control over such matters. The applicant will have to go through a separate approval process with the Health and Safety Executive, the Council and the Environment Agency post-planning to ensure all environmental standards and emergency procedures are met before starting operations. I conclude that the very special circumstances presented by the development clearly and demonstrably outweigh the harm caused to the Greenbelt. In the absence of any objections from statutory consultees, it is also clear that the developments would not result in any other harm, therefore satisfying the tests of national policy. As there are no other material considerations weighing against the proposal, it is respectfully requested that members grant planning permission for this important development. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for your detailed presentation, Dominic. You did it in exactly 4 minutes.
Thank you.
There's been some training going on there. Right, okay. That's all representations complete. I will now open this up to committee. I have Councillor Williams and then Councillor Mrs. Green.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for such a comprehensive report. This has got so much in it, and there's so much to consider with this particular application. There is an innovative way of producing new fuel. That's the future. There's very sensitive issues around green belt. There is all sorts of economic issues to consider around the brewery and things like that. AB InBev is a major employer, and I used to run a brewery, albeit on such a small scale. And the energy used within the brewing industry is significant, and the amount of gas that they must be using there for producing and also packaging and all the other uses must be absolutely substantial. So we've got to balance quite a few things up here. Now, thanks very much to everybody that arranged a site visit. It was really informative. And when we're talking about Greenbelt, how can I describe this without sounding insulting? There's various different areas of Greenbelt. This is a patch of agricultural land that's on a great big slope that borders the A59, a major trunk road. We're not talking a patch of land that's in the middle of a field that is full of nesting birds and everything else. It is a patch of sloping land that is, yes, it's of agricultural use, but it is of minimal crop and whatever use. The topography of the site dictates it. And I'm not a farmer, but that basically demonstrates to me that it's a not saying minimal use or minimum harm. It is the weight of it when balancing it up goes towards it. There's a massive wider environmental benefit to this, and this I believe this is the first time this has been done in England. I know there's building one in Wales. So yes, there are some people saying the technology isn't tested, but somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it, and obviously this technology apparently is used in different areas and different industries, and it can be done. So you've got to balance the benefit of that and the fact that this such a massive site would be self-sufficient, and the trucks would be self-sufficient. The fact that the access is going through, that everything is going through that site rather than to anything external. Hydrogen fuel is one of the future things, and I think we should support it. And yes, I don't like stuff being built on Greenbelt, but in this case, I think the special circumstances are the fact that this has never been done before, and we're going to have to, somebody somewhere is going to have to be the first to do it, and I think we should be the first to do it. And it's been demonstrated that this is suitable use and a good application and a fantastic application of it. So I would like to propose approval.
Okay, Councillor Williams, thank you for that. So you're proposing approval with conditions, I presume? Yeah.
With the conditions that are in the report, yeah.
Okay, so we have, thanks, Councillor Williams. We have Councillor Mrs Green and Councillor David Shaw following.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've come here tonight and I've listened to everyone speaking, and the residents are obviously very passionate and value the land there. I too am passionate about Greenbelt as well. It's a bit weird, this report, because what's been reported on the report doesn't exactly match in the report in one or two places. For instance, what Councillor Smith brought up about the Samlesbury and Curedale Parish Council objecting. It's definitely in the report that they are objecting to this. On section 1.2, the local estates, local plan, G1 policy for Greenbelt. No doubt about that. In 2.3, it says the woodlands surrounding the area is designated as a biological heritage site. 2.5, there's tree preservation orders on trees in this area. And 3.2, although InBev in the past has had a long history of applications and everything, it's not directly, this application is not directly linked with InBev. It's a separate application. 7.1.12 specifically says it's inappropriate development in the Greenbelt, and there's no special circumstance to agree to that. No special circumstance at all. And 8.2 also states there's a loss of openness, there's encroachment into open countryside, there's loss of agricultural land, and to a certain extent affects the visual amenity of the area. So to me, even though this is going with science, going with the future, which that's the way we're going, and it's going to be this hydrogen is a fuel of the future, and everything. But to me, there's no use producing that, which is supposed to protect the environment, and then you're killing off all the environment with everything that's going on the greenbelt and everything that goes with it, the trees, the bushes, the wildlife, and all the rest of it. So to me, I recommend refusal.
Reason, policy reason.
Openness in taking the loss of an openness and encroachment on open countryside, loss of agricultural land, affecting visual amenity. There's quite a few reasons there.
Yeah, I've got that, Councillor Green. Debbie, if you'd like to come in, and then I'm going to fetch Dave in with some.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to clarify 2 points that Councillor Green made. Paragraph 7.1.2 does say that development is inappropriate, but it doesn't say that there are no very special circumstances. It says that the developer has to demonstrate them, and further through into the report, there is an assessment of the harm and of the very special circumstances. That's a very different thing. And in terms of the 2 tree preservation order areas and the BHS, I did say during my presentation that they're on the outskirts of the site and they won't be affected. They're there for context, but they won't be affected. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much, Debbie. Dave?
Yes, Chair. Hopefully this may assist. For me, the key question here is you're looking at development in the Greenbelt. The development by definition is inappropriate. That doesn't mean to say you can't grant planning permission, but you just have to be convinced there are very special circumstances. So that's the question. Now, if Councillor Mrs. Green is moving refusal, presumably it's on the basis this is development in the Greenbelt and there are no very special circumstances have been demonstrated. So I'd suggest that would be your reason for refusal. Obviously, the officer report sets out the reasons why the officer considers there are good reasons for believing there are very special circumstances, but if you're moving refusal, I would suggest it be on the basis that I explained.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. I was by training a chemist a long time ago, admittedly. In my day, the way you would make hydrogen is you would get a pot of water, you put a small amount of salt in it, you stick 2 electrodes in it, and hydrogen would come off one and oxygen would come off the other. This is some sort of posh way of doing the same thing. Oxygen goes out to the nature around it, and the hydrogen is captured and put somewhere, waiting until it either explodes or it's put into perhaps the brewery as a clean burn. My problem with it, apart from the possibility of a big bang, is and always was that when I was sticking my 2 little electrodes in, the electricity coming from that was coming from a coal-fired power station. So it's just moving into our area where we can ring fence this nice clean thing within our area. But the actual electricity depends on how clean that is, to how clean our fuel turns out to be. That said, within this application, there is potential for putting oxygen out into the local green area and taking out carbon dioxide by using this in the brewery. And that's got to be a positive thing. So I do have some concerns. I'm very keen that you don't put great sources of effectively an explosive gas on top of a gas pipeline, but Cadent obviously will be interested in that. The Health and Safety Executive, my dear wife was quite a senior member of the Health and Safety Executive, and would have been very interested in finding exactly how they do this. I'm pretty sure they're going to be fairly keen to find out how it all works as well. I have no problem with this. I'm happy to second approval.
Okay, thanks, councillor Shaw. So that's seconded for approval. Councillor Molyneux.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Shaw just mentioned there about the safety aspect, and I'm also concerned about that. This pipeline that runs across it, it just seems a bit weird to me that everybody seems to be saying, "Oh, it's fine, won't be a problem." If something actually happened there and there was an explosion, it'd be catastrophic. I just cannot understand why we're sat here this evening being so calm about it as though it's the best thing since sliced bread. It obviously isn't. You know, from my point of view, besides talking about taking green belt, I don't think there's been enough information, certainly not explained to me, about the dangers that could happen. You know, it's almost like it is the first time they've done it, so it is a starter for 10, if you like. There's no real concrete evidence that all this is going to work and it's going to be, you know, great for the community as well as for the country. Big concern over the pipeline. Green belt, as Councillor Green mentioned, green belt is being taken up. For me, that's the number one priority within this borough. We try and keep as much green belt as possible and not just allow it to go. I think the safety of that pipeline is really important and one of my main concerns. It does say the parish council. Obviously, we thought at first they hadn't. I was very surprised when I heard that, but I'm glad it's been rectified. But it was in the report to say that they have objected. They're not happy. You know, it is a rural area. They want to keep the green belt wherever possible. And so I agree with what they were saying there about their reason was that it's the loss of green belt and agricultural land, which I agree that is the case. Yeah, the other thing was with it mentions about this is only going to produce for the site, this hydrogen. Is there a definite condition on there that says it will only be produced for this site, and we won't start to say if it was to go ahead, they were talking about producing hydrogen, that it wouldn't be sent here, there and everywhere and more traffic on the road. These are country lanes we're talking about here. We're not talking about main roads, and that would make a big difference to the area if you got more heavy goods on there. I just can't accept that this is safe. And I know one of the residents mentioned that maybe we should be trying to get a bit more evidence, a bit more clarification before we make a decision on this. And maybe there was talk about deferral, whether that's a possibility. If not, I would second refusal.
Okay. What might happen, Councillor Molyneux, isn't quantifiable. Nobody can say what might happen, so it isn't a material planning consideration. But Dominic, could you tell us the hydrogen will be staying on site, used solely by, you can say it from there, used solely by InBev, is that correct? Okay, thanks for that. And Cadent with the pipeline, can you shine some light on that for me, Debbie?
Absolutely. We've gone to 4 safety organisations. Health and Safety Executive have no objection, subject to other licences and permits, which Dominic and his team are working on behind the scenes separately. Cadent, again, subject to the condition that is on the update sheet from this morning, they have no objection. And again, the licences are being dealt with separately. all of these things aren't just at the behest of the planning committee. There are lots and lots of other pieces of legislation they've got to get passed. Lancashire Fire and Rescue have no objection, and the counter-terrorism team at Lancashire Constabulary have no objection, and they've gone through these with a fine-tooth comb. They're not just light comments. There's been a lot of work done on this, so I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. Do you still want to go for refusal, Councillor Molyneux?
Yeah, I can't accept, and I can't get out of my head that this is not a dangerous situation we're in, and I'm flabbergasted how calm we are this evening.
Okay, so, and it's Greenbelt, yeah? Your policy reason is Greenbelt, yeah?
Sorry?
Your policy reason for refusal is Greenbelt?
Yeah, and obviously from a danger point of view as well, I think that needs to be highlighted. It's not been talked about much this evening, but certainly we can bring that into it, I'm sure. And I would second refusal.
Yes, Chair. As when I intervened earlier on, I was trying to emphasise the fact that if the committee were minded to refuse, I'm not saying you should, but if you were minded to refuse, the argument should be based on Greenbelt. The argument based on safety is all these various different organisations have assessed it. They have said it's fine, or separate licences have been obtained. I don't think we, the council, are in a position to refuse it on the grounds that we think it may be dangerous. We have no evidence to suggest that. So I think that would be inappropriate. But if you're minded to say it should be refused on Greenbelt reasons, then that's within your gift. That's your decision.
Okay, thanks for that, Dave. I'm bringing Councillor Farnworth in. He's intimated he wants to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank the officers for clarifying the safety aspects of that and the consultees that we've spoken to. I think the applications have good benefit in terms of employment, education and environmental matters. It'll help a large employer to provide cleaner energy for its operations, including the use of trucks on our roads. Now, we appreciate the concerns about the small loss of Greenbelt, I really do. But on the site visit, I thought it was clear that the field, like Councillor Williams alluded to, isn't really well used, and the sort of topography of it is built on a hill. So personally, I think the benefits of the application far outweigh the negatives. So in these special circumstances, I'd be happy to support, subject to recommendations.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Farnworth. Councillor Rudsworth, did you just intimate? No, okay. Councillor Stringfellow.
There seemed to be some concern about this being the first time this technology has ever been used. And it's actually, I think, as Dominic explained, it has been used in other parts of Europe already. Is that correct? It's the first time it's been used in England. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Right, okay. So we had the proposal for approval from... Have we got any more proposals apart from approval or refusal? Nobody wants to go for deferment, no? Right, so we had approval from Councillor Hayden Williams, seconded by Councillor Shaw. Then we had an amendment for refusal from Councillor Mrs Green on Greenbelt issues, which was seconded by Councillor Molyneux on Greenbelt issues only, not safety, Greenbelt issues. So we're going to vote on the amendment for refusal first. None of the officers want to come in again, do they? No. Okay. So this is for refusal for this application at InBev. We'll do it electronically. So this is on the amendment for refusal.
Yes, the amendment has been lost. There were just 2 votes in favour of it.
Okay, Dave, thank you. So we're now going to go to the electronic vote for approval, which was proposed by Councillor...
Sorry, Chair, just to clarify, technically it's not complete approval because it has to be delegated to the Director and yourself and the Vice Chair pending the Secretary of State. So it's in effect in principle approval subject to that. Is it or isn't it? sorry, it's in effect you're voting for in principle approval, subject with conditions, but the final decision is delegated to director, chair, and vice chair, pending whether there's going to be a call in by the Secretary of State.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So you're all fair with that? Yeah. So this is for approval with conditions, as long as it isn't called in by the Secretary of State. Okay.
Sorry, that's been carried at 8 votes to 2.
Okay, Dave, thank you very much for that. So if you were just here for that application, that is obviously done and dusted. We're going to move on to item number 7, which is the Red Lion Hotel, Liverpool Road, Longton. And Debbie is introducing this item as well. Okay, Debbie?
Thank you, Chair. This is quite a short one, actually. The site is within the rear car park of the Red Lion pub in Longton. The area is surrounded by grassed or hard standing area, fences and trees. All parts of the site are accessed from the eastern side. There is residential beyond all the site boundaries, but they benefit from appropriate spatial separation in line with adopted standards. And the site is in the existing built-up area, so there is a presumption towards development. The application seeks retrospective permission for change of use of land for retention of a hot food takeaway trailer. That's use class sui generis. The food truck has 2 chilled storage cabinets and 2 separate storage cabinets, and it's located towards the site centre at the rear of the pub. It would remain there permanently. It's a static facility and it would be used from 4 till 9 Wednesday to Sunday, and we secure that by condition. We've had 3 letters of support, no objection, and no objection from statutory consultees. So we go with approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that very detailed report. Is it right? Is it called Smokies? Living next door to Alice Smokies. Right, I'm going to open it up to committee because nobody wants to speak on this. We don't have any members of the public, don't have the ward members, and we don't have the applicant or the agent. So it's just Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question, if I may. We refused, or the committee some time ago refused some use on the grounds that they didn't put in adequate ventilation for a kitchen for cooking, and so the concern was there would be smells around the area. And yet, if you put it on a trailer out on the car park, we don't seem to need anything. Am I getting that wrong?
Not necessarily. I think the scale's different. If you've got a commercial hot food takeaway in a building, then it's large scale commercial equipment, large scale extraction. This is a much smaller scale. That being said, Environmental Health have looked at it, considered it from a noise and air pollution perspective, and they don't feel there's anything unnecessary about it. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else? Councillor Smith.
Just propose approval, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Unsworth.
Yeah, I was going to propose, so I'll second approval. Yeah, I just said that.
Any other proposals? Okay, so this is for approval with conditions.
Yes, Chair, that's gone through unanimously.
Okay, thanks very much, Dave. Right, item number 8 this evening, Bison Place, Moss Side Industrial Estate, Leyland. Members should note there was an update sheet published earlier today. I'm presuming you've all had it and you've all read it. Chris, if you'd like to present this item, please.
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to a 0.46 hectare parcel of land to the west of Unit 87 Bison Place. The site is within an area of land designated under Policy E2 of the local plan for the protection of employment areas. The site is predominantly hard standing and is currently used for the external storage of commercial vehicles. The site is bound by mature trees and hedging along the western side. Planning permission is sought for the erection of 22 commercial units in the commercial, general industrial and storage and distribution use class, together with the formation of a new vehicular access and associated works. County Highways have however raised a number of concerns in regards to highway and pedestrian safety, as detailed in section 7.6 of the report. County Highways have also raised concern that the proposed new junction onto Titan Way does not meet junction spacing standards, with the junction being too close to the existing access for Osprey Place. In addition, no visibility displays have been provided for this new junction. As detailed in section 7.7 of the report, the lead local flood authority have objected to the proposal as no drainage statement or drainage strategy has been provided. Trees and bushes along the northern boundaries with Titan Way and Bison Place are proposed to be removed, with pockets of replacement landscaping detailed on the site layout plan. However, no tree impact assessment has been provided, contrary to the requirements of Policy G13. The applicant has been given the opportunity to try and address outstanding concerns. However, no additional or amended details have been forthcoming. An update sheet has been issued in relation to this item today, after the agent has stated that the outstanding information will be provided week commencing the 12th of February. An extension of time has also been agreed until the 23rd of March. This is important because if the committee decide to defer the application, as requested by the agent, the council will be protected from the risk of being asked to return the application fee after the 22nd of February, which is 6 months after the date of the submission of the application. As it currently stands, due to the absence or inadequacy of information relating to highway, surface water drainage and tree matters, and the harm that may subsequently be caused, the proposal the committee may wish to refuse the application, or there is the option to defer, given the extension of time which has been agreed with the agent today. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that presentation, Chris. We don't have any objectors to the application. We don't have any supporters, but we do have the ward member. Good evening out there in Moss Side, Councillor Michael Green. Oh, you're not in Moss Side, you're in Florida.
I wish I was, Mr. Chairman. Good evening to yourself and to members of the Planning Committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this application. I'd like to thank the officer for the report. I've read the report. I've seen the submissions by the Highways Authority and by the Lead Local Flood Authority. I am particularly concerned about the potential impact upon the safety of people using the highways, concerned about the potential flood issues, and concerned about the loss of trees with no tree impact assessment. It's quite rare that an application comes before committee in this state where there are so many missing pieces of information, and the applicant and their agent have been written to on several occasions by the council without any response up to 1 minute to midnight, if I can put it that way, Mr. Chairman, for them to actually come forward on the day of the committee and say that all of a sudden they're going to produce this information, I would submit is wholly unacceptable to the council. I speak in full support of the recommendations which have been set out by your officer and would urge the committee to reject this application. And of course, a subsequent application may then come forward, which you can consider in the fullness of time with all the relevant information to ensure that it's an appropriate development for the local area. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Green. Thanks for your representations. The agent stroke applicant isn't here to speak to us this evening. I am going to bring this application into committee. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, it's quite one of the strangest applications I've seen, and they submit an application and then don't conform with the recommendations of the various areas. It's quite straightforward to me. The application, I will vote refusal, Chair, in line with the officer's report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Williams. Oh, Councillor Sharples following Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I concur with what Councillor Smith has said there. I'm absolutely gobsmacked that somebody would put this forward. There is clearly objections from the LCC and highways, and yet they wouldn't have had the right information or done anything about it before now. And at the 11th hour, we suddenly get something and say, well, you know, we're going to do this in a week's time or 2 weeks. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. But I would second refusal. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a real efficient job, this one, isn't it? Councillor Williams.
I'm not going to spare on about this too long, but yeah, I agree with what everybody has said. It's like all the information there to do something. People have been asked for it since September. They've had 4 months to do it. Then, like I say, 1 minute to midnight. They said, "Oh yeah, we'll get it for your week commencing the 12th of Feb. We'll extend it." But even then, when you get the drainage strategy and the highways response, it doesn't say, you know, there's that much wrong with it. That it doesn't mean to say it's going to be a fix, and that's going to have to be consulted again. And who says when we'll get to 22nd of March, you know, and we can't, and we still can't pass it. So I would say take it off, refuse it as it is, start again. So I would go on what everybody said.
Thanks, Councillor Williams. Does anybody want to propose approval or deferral? Lot of head shaking. Dave wants to come in because he's holding it. Oh, well, take your fingers off the button then. Right. So we are going to vote on the proposal for refusal by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Sharples, and thirded by Councillor Williams. Okay, so electronic vote now, please.
Yes, Chair, that's a unanimous vote in favour of refusal.
Okay, Dave, thanks for that. Okay, moving swiftly on to item number 9. Land at Old School Lane, Lostock Hall. And good evening, Lisa, if you'd like to present this item.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. This application is for the creation of a new vehicular access off Old School Lane, the realignment of Old School Lane at the northern end, and alterations to the junction of Old School Lane and Lostock Lane, which is the A582. On the plan in front of you, you can see the area within the applicant's ownership, which to the west of the site, this does not form part of the application, the land in blue. Land to the east is owned by the County Council in a joint venture. The aerial image of the site before you identifies the surrounding road network where the junction is positioned in the area identified to the top of the picture with the red circle in front of it. This slide shows that the site is within the adopted master plan area, which is covered by policy C4 of the adopted local plan and known as the Cuerdon strategic site. Part of the site, which is identified and labelled as proposed residential, to the northwest of the site. This is not part of the application site before you, just to reiterate that point. A recent application by LCC and Maple Grove Developments, which is detailed in the committee report, was recently approved in December last year. This excluded the land within the applicant's ownership. This slide shows some images of the site in question, of the junction, where you can see the A582 is dual carriageway leading on to the junction with Old School Lane, which is the image on the bottom right-hand corner. That's looking south down Old School Lane. You can see in the image labelled number 1, the sign there on the corner just identifies that is only for access at the junction. This image shows the proposed site plan, which shows the proposed junction arrangement, and into this, where there'd be an access-only signage point at the point identified on the plan. The application itself has been reviewed by County Highways, who themselves have no objections to the application, following robust and detailed information provided by the applicant and their agents. This is an additional drawing which just extends further northwards and provides some of the mitigation proposed on the drawing. It's important to note with this application, we're only assessing the junction itself, and that any future planning application on the site edge blue would have to be considered as a separate planning application at that stage, where all parties would again be consulted, including the Highways Authority. That would also be a major application, be required to come before any planning committee. Just to reiterate, this application has been reviewed and scrutinised by Neil Stevens at Lancashire County Council Highways, the same officer who reviewed the County Highways, the County Council scheme, which was recently approved, just to rest assured that this has received the utmost attention within the authority itself. In terms of an update report, which was issued late on yesterday afternoon, just to reiterate, previous objection by the adjacent landowner, which was jointly by Lancashire County Council and Maple Grove Developments, has been removed in line with the published committee update. Therefore, in terms of this application, which has no objection from any statutory consultees, the application is recommended for approval, subject to a number of planning conditions which are outlined in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for your report, Lisa. Okay, once again on this application, we have Councillor Michael Green wishing to speak. Councillor Green.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to speak, Mr. Chairman. And can I just declare an interest, first of all, because I am an elected county councillor for the local area. And the application is coming forward, and development on the Cuerden site comes forward on the back of a master plan. Now, the master plan was adopted by South Ribble Borough Council some years ago, but it followed significant consultation with landowners, statutory consultees, other stakeholders, the local community, importantly. It sets out a number of issues, including access and movement, highways and transport, design principles, green space, viability, and relationship to existing residents. What the master plan does not include is the creation of a new vehicular access at this location, which is currently being applied for. A new access at this site is not consistent with that master plan, which was adopted by South Ribble Borough Council. And my concerns, Mr. Chairman and councillors, is that there potentially is an impact upon the amenity of residents on Old School Lane and Stoney Lane. Whilst I do support the additional mitigation which the Highways Authority have achieved in consultation with the applicant, including a signalised crossing over the A582 and a speed limit reduction, and traffic calming schemes along Old School Lane and Stoney Lane, which may reduce their use as a rat run, because that is an issue in the area. However, whilst the application is for the creation of the new vehicular access only, it is clearly designed, as the report sets out, with the objective of facilitating residential development of a significant number of houses. I would therefore point out that if this application is approved this evening, this would potentially cause hundreds of traffic movements in the local area. Whilst the majority of traffic from the said development should not be travelling along Old School Lane and Stoney Lane, as it would clearly be marked for access only, this would, of course, be difficult to enforce, and I am therefore concerned about the potential impact upon the amenity of residents. And that's why I bring this to your attention this evening, Mr. Chairman, having obviously carefully considered that it's not consistent with the original master plan which was approved. So I'll leave it for your consideration, but thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Councillor Green. We have the ward member, Councillor Alty, wishing to speak on this application. I'll not call you Jackie in public, all right? Okay, Councillor Alty.
Thank you. Let me reply to many names. So, first of all, I agree with what Councillor Michael Green has just said in terms of concerns, as it currently is used as a rat run, that particular area. So thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of myself and Councillor Paul Wharton-Harbin. We're representing our community, our ward in Farrington. I acknowledge that the application is policy compliant, but I must object to the proposed creation of a new vehicle access off Old School Lane in Farrington East to a proposed new development. It's disheartening to witness the disregard for the assurances previously given by the County Council years ago during the consultation on the Cuerdon site. At that time, residents were promised that Old School Lane would remain untouched and access would not be changed, and now the goalposts have been moved in the name of expediency. Over the years, residents have endured the disruptive consequences of surrounding developments, grappling with the challenges of construction, encroaching on their chosen way of life, financial and emotional investments. To compound matters, Old School Lane has become a target for speeding vehicles, exploiting the access-only route as a convenient shortcut, and I've witnessed that myself a number of times, being queued in traffic. As local councillors, our primary duty is to champion the well-being of our community, and that is precisely what Councillor Wharton-Harbin and I are trying and committed to do. The residents in this area have been let down, particularly by Lancashire County Council, whose promises have been shattered by this gradual, step-by-step intrusion into their peaceful environment. The decision tonight being just one more imposition by stealth. I find it astonishing that Highways have not raised objections, considering the significant traffic issues already prevalent in the vicinity. Adding another access point off Old School Lane will only exacerbate existing problems, further eroding the quality of life of those who call the area home. As a voice for the community, Councillor Wharton-Harbin and I would be derelict in our duty if we didn't challenge the recommendation tonight. Difficult decisions are never easy for anyone, but our current residents who have invested in a way of life, as I said earlier, both financially and emotionally, should not be shortchanged by the movement of the goalposts. We should acknowledge the reality of the adverse impact it will have on our Old School Lane residents and refuse to minimise that impact. They deserve better. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'll leave it there.
Okay, thanks very much for your representation, Councillor Alty. Okay, we have the applicant, Tom Whitehead. Are you from Brookhouse Group Limited, yeah? Yeah. Okay, Tom, you have a maximum of 4 minutes, okay?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. I'm Tom Whitehead of the Brookhouse Group. We own approximately 1/3 of the site at Cuerdon, and we're the applicant for the proposal this evening. The Cuerdon site will be well known to members. It's a strategic allocation in the local plan. The local plan requires that the site is delivered in a comprehensive manner. Your officer's report explains that Lancashire County Council, who own approximately the remaining 2/3 of the site, granted themselves planning permission for their land in December. That development is not comprehensive. It excludes our land. South Ribble made representations to Lancashire not to isolate our land. It appears your representations were not heeded. In order to meet your local plan policy, therefore, Brookhouse have no other choice but to create our own access. Your officer's report has made clear that this proposal relates solely for highways access. There are no buildings proposed. If this access is approved, we will work with South Ribble to apply for the buildings that will use this access. Clearly, that planning application would come back to this committee for consideration and matters of detail would be dealt with at that time. In the meantime, however, I can confirm that we won't be building this access in isolation. We are simply establishing the principle as to whether this access is acceptable, given that we've been excluded from the Lancashire Permission. We note the comments made on behalf of local residents, and I am happy to commit this evening to meeting residents and members when we work up the proposals for future development, should that be of interest. Clearly, however, we must all recognise that this is an allocated development site. The only other thing to say is that our proposal will not impair the delivery of the planning permission Lancashire recently granted itself, and we note that Lancashire's agent has written to this committee withdrawing their previous objection. I'm happy to take any questions. Otherwise, thank you for your time.
Thanks for your representation, Tom. I must welcome the fact that you say you're willing to work in conjunction with residents. That gets a big thumbs up from me. But anyway, I'm now going to bring this application into committee. Councillor Williams, and then Councillor Green, and then Councillor Molyneux. Did you say no? Okay, Councillor Williams.
Been listening to all this, and obviously I was only recently elected, and I'm a recent new member to this planning committee. And obviously, I'm party to some bits and pieces that have gone on before about QE and master plans and stuff like that. And I've been listening to this, and obviously I've read some of the background to some of the QE and thing. And I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place here, because it seems like this committee has been asked to judge a spat between Lancashire County Council and Brookhouse. That's what it sounds like to me, but I may or may not be wrong. I don't know. The residents have promised that this access wouldn't actually be used, but this is the only way Brookhouse can get access to their own land. That's what we've been told. So obviously the residents don't want this access. They were told over a number of years ago, oh no, this isn't going to be touched. But yet this is actually policy compliant, and we haven't got any legs to stand on. I can't find a reason not to refuse it. So unhappily, and I don't think this committee should be used to solve a spat between two organisations, I'll go along with the officer's recommendation with approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williams. Councillor Mary Green.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've listened to everyone this evening on this application. I know the site very well. It's a little lane, basically. There's no passing places, there's no pavements, there's no way for two cars to pass one another. It's a little tiny lane, which I know the residents already have problems with people using it as a rat run, as been stated. Obviously, it's strange to me. Don't remember ever not having a sort of an outline application where you've got your outline permission for building plus access. I don't seem to remember having a separate application just for access and separately for that, for building. I don't know, it might be me that, but I find that a bit strange. But yeah, it's a tight area. It's used as a rat run. It will be used as a rat run because you can widen it as much as you want onto Lostock Lane. I mean, that in itself is a very dangerous exit to get onto Lostock. They speed like mad down there. Some will go that way in future, when future houses are built. They will go down that way. But some going to Leyland won't go that way and all the way around. They'll continue with the rat run through. So it's encouraging more traffic. I'm a bit concerned with 7.2, the LCC highways part of this report. It says this proposal includes mitigation on the A582 on approaches to Stanleyfield Lane, signalised roundabout junction as well as traffic calming scheme on all School Lane and Stoney Lane, which are necessary and are sufficient for this proposal. Without this mitigation, the local highway authority would oppose this proposal. So how tight conditions have we got on to enforce that this does happen? But I'm a bit concerned because the highway authority aren't really happy with it unless these mitigations are put in place. All in all, I think it's all down to lack of resident amenity, change of amenity, obviously with more cars. I don't know how many houses are going on there, but you can say probably a couple of hundred cars at least. So it's going to change it massively. So I would say I would go for refusal. Thank you.
Lisa, can you come back with the mitigation?
Yeah, I was just going to come back on that one point on the mitigation measures and the conditions. Condition number 2 of the officer's report does advise that it would have to be done in conjunction with the approved plans. That does include the mitigation plan, which highlights the crossing, the widening and the junction works. So that is the development would have to be undertaken, and those includes lengthening the lanes as well and the visibility space. So all of that is incorporated within that condition.
Thanks, Lisa. You're going for refusal, Councillor Green, yeah? Residential amenity, okay?
Yeah.
You can come in, Catherine, by all.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. My advice would be it would be extremely difficult and challenging to defend a reason for refusal on residential amenity, because this is an access alone with no development included. So simply an access. So there is no identification of the number of vehicular movements going in and out of that in the future. So to substantiate an impact on residential amenity would be extremely challenging.
Chair.
Thanks, Catherine.
1 minute. One quick.
Just one quick one, because I've got Councillor Smith, Councillor Fineworth and Councillor Shaw.
But then down the line, you're going to have an application for property being built and then turn around to tell us you can't refuse it or whatever because of amenity, because the access is there.
Go on, Catherine.
Yes, Councillor Green. So if we were to receive an application using that access in the future, we would then be able to assess the impact of that development. And if at that point members felt that vehicular movements in and out of that access were going to cause an impact on residential amenity, they could then take that into consideration at the time of that application. However, it would be very difficult to take that into account at the time of this application because it is purely for a physical access. It's likely, I mean, I don't really want to reiterate all of this, but I will do. The reason that this proposal has come before you is because Lancashire County Council have granted themselves a planning permission relating only to their own land. As a council, we objected to that application or raised observations on the grounds that they should ensure comprehensive development, i.e. there was guaranteed access to the land that Brookhouse owned. I went to the committee meeting of that council assuming that that matter would be raised and dealt with, and it wasn't. There is no legal agreement, there are no appropriate conditions to secure that access. So in order to gain access through the county council's lands, the county council effectively has a ransom strip over Brookhouse, which is inappropriate. You know, it might mean that their land is never able to come forward for development, and it's allocated for development in our local plan. It may be in the future that were we to approve this application, there can then be further negotiations between Brookhouse and the county council, and access can be achieved through the site as was expected, but that might not be possible, and we don't want to stymie the development potential of land when an appropriate access that meets the requirements of the county council can be designed and achieved. And as I said, any future development on that site that access would serve will need to come back to this committee and can be fully considered at that point. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for your advice, Catherine. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. To be quite honest, it's about time that the Cuerden site came forward as a whole. I'm completely dumbfounded in the sense that that this piece of land has been sort of isolated, and it is in our local plan, and it is in the master plan, and this shouldn't happen. And we've been dealing with this as a council. What was it, 2015, and a long time before that, I have to say. one of the most strategic, or if not the most strategic piece of land in South Ribble, to be quite honest. And we're messing about with this. If we've got to have separate planning applications coming forward to complete the site, I don't know how we deal with that, because in our local plan it says it's got to be a complete development from the master plan itself, but quite clearly the county council have given themselves planning permission for part of the site and excluded the other part of the site. Does that negate the master plan altogether? I think that's a question I would like to ask before I go on.
I think largely what we would have to say from a planning point of view is there has been a material change in circumstances since that master plan was written and adopted by this council, because the county council has now approved an application on a large percentage of that land and excluded other areas. So yes, it impacts on delivery of that master plan.
You put it much better than I did, I have to say. But this site has got to come forward, to be quite honest. We need housing, but not only do we need housing, we need jobs to go along with it, and the whole site has got to be developed in a proper, rational and professional way, which it hasn't been done over a period of time for lots and lots of reasons. People have come in and gone out, and the developments have started and then failed, and lots of reasons. But I will second approval, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Smith. Councillor Matt Farnworth.
Thanks, Chair. Just want to say I'm just slightly confused on this, and I understand that the application is for access, and this comment might be speculative, but if we refuse the access, so for instance, if an application for properties is submitted, because it's in the local plan, where would the traffic from the proposed properties go? Because in my view, Stannisfield Lane's already bottlenecked as it is, and this would be the better solution. I'm not happy that we seem to be between LTC and Brookhouse, so I don't necessarily agree with that. And I would hope that the applicant works to try and prevent the rat run that my colleagues have discussed. I'd be open to see what the rest of the committee think, though.
Councillor, the rush towards the buttons was amazing. Catherine.
Indicated that access to this site would be off Stannifield Lane through land owned by the county council, which obviously gives the applicants a difficulty because he can't access it from Stannifield Lane without going through the county council land. In terms of impact, in terms of a rat run, I think the geometry that's proposed in terms of this access will actually slow down traffic actually on Old School Lane and may actually prevent it being used as a rat run.
Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. You're on a good run tonight, aren't you? Councillor Shaw.
Chair, I've got to say, Catherine has said everything that I would have really been interested to know. She's explained the answer to a lot of the things here. I think it's a nasty trick that the county council have frankly played when we've got a master plan to deliver. I'm going to have to go along with approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Shaw. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Mrs Green's proposal for refusal? No, I don't. So can we go to are we all happy to go to the vote for approval? Yeah, okay. So this is for approval with conditions. Thank you.
Yes, Chair, that's been approved with a vote of 9-1.
Okay, thanks very much, Dave. Thank you, officers. Thank you, members of the committee. Thanks, Tom. Thank you, Councillor Alty. Thank you, Councillor Michael Green. That's the end of this meeting. We will see you all on the 28th. 22nd. Have you moved it?
Very close. I'm sure it's the 22nd.
No. Is it 22nd?
Yeah.
22nd, I'm being told, but I might turn up a week late. Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you.